What's happening, everybody? Thanks so much for clicking on the podcast and joining us this week. This week, we are preparing for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, talking about all the Ghostbusters movies that led up to this point, except for the 2016 one, because that's kind of an offshoot, and so we left that one off. But it is spoiler heavy, so we dive into plot points, we dive into story, we dive into all the pieces that got us here, and all the highs, all the lows, all that stuff. Really some fun conversation with the boys around this, so really hope you enjoy it. I would say, again, thank you so much for listening, and we would love it if you could like and share with your friends. Let them know about the podcast. It would really be fun to share this with everybody else, especially those that have kids. I think that kids listening to other kids would be a cool thing for them, and I really hope that they would find joy, and it would give parents another way of kind of talking to entertainment in a more meaningful way with their kids. Give them some examples of how we do that here in this house. So again, thanks for listening, and hope you'll share, and be sure to follow us on Instagram. That's the best place to see announcements and things like that about what's upcoming. And you can check out our lists on Movies That Make You, the podcast, at I Am Sprang on Letterboxd, and that is where we have the movies that make you cry, the movies that make you laugh, the movies that make you scream. All those lists are out there for you to see and to take note. So without further ado, let's get to the podcast. All right, we are back with the podcast. We're going to have a fun discussion today. Let's introduce everybody that's here. I am Sprang, and I am Dad.
I'm Connor, and I'm 14.
I'm Jacob, and I'm 13.
I'm Colton, and I'm 11.
I'm Ezekiel, and I'm 10.
Very cool. And today we are gearing up. We are doing this episode to gear up for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire that comes out this Friday. So we hope that you guys are excited for that. I know that we are. It's one that when we saw the trailer, what'd you think of the trailer, Connor, when you saw it?
It looked a lot scarier and more realistic.
Yeah, especially than the older ones.
Yeah.
What about you, Jacob? What'd you think?
I thought it looked a little more serious, too. It did look scarier than the older ones, but I thought that it had a serious part as well.
And Colton, you actually said that you saw it recently and liked it, right? The trailer?
Yeah, I liked it. The main villain. Actually, scary.
Got it.
Ooh.
All right. To gear up for the new movie, we wanted to watch the old one. Now, I will give a caveat that the 2016 Ghostbusters that had the ladies as the Ghostbusters was not a part of this series. It was somewhat like this kind of chance at doing a reboot. But meanwhile, Jason Reitman, whose dad directed the first two Ghostbusters, was already working on Ghostbusters Afterlife. So we had seen the female Ghostbusters before together, but for gearing up for Frozen Empire, we decided to stick to the original two and then Afterlife. So we're gonna jump in. Any thoughts before we jump into the movies themselves about what you thought? Tell us what you thought about Ghostbusters before watching it this time. Anything unique?
Not really, because I watched all of them before, and I felt like I understood it already.
Yeah.
Or just refresh.
Yeah, just a refresher. Zeke, what about you?
I have seen the first Ghostbusters before, but I have never seen the second one. The first one was my second most favorite, and then my least favorite was the second one because there was this guy who was really evil, and he literally wanted to destroy the entire world, and I did not like that.
So what was your favorite then? That leaves
Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Cool. Well, we'll dive into those movies right now. So let's take a first stab at the first movie. First movie, we get introduced to 3 of the 4 Ghostbusters. Anybody remember what Venkman is doing when we first meet him?
So in the beginning, he had a man and a woman in there, and the man, he was doing electric shocks on them. If they got the answer wrong, they had to clear their minds and see they had to guess what was on the card, and the guy was super bad at it. But the guy who was testing them, the girl, he went soft on the girl, and he's like, "Man, you're doing so good."
Yeah. So he was basically trying to be nice to her so that she'd go out on a date with him, and so he's telling her that she's getting it right even though she's getting it wrong. So while in the middle of that, he gets interrupted by Spengler, which is Egon Spengler, and Ray, who have been tasked with going to a library to see a ghost. Right? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So, what was your first reaction to when we met the ghost in the library?
I thought it looked weird.
Thought it looked weird. How so?
I don't know. It just looked weird. And I'm pretty sure he saw Slimer.
Slimer was in the hotel.
Right. So the first encounter they had was with the ghost in the library. That's when they decide, hey, we're going to go. There's something real going on. Ghosts are real. We need to stop them. And so they decide to form the Ghostbusters. And then their first call is from the hotel, saying that they have a ghost in the hotel, and that turns out to be Slimer. So what was your favorite moment of the first movie, Jacob?
I really liked how funny the CGI looked, or the stop motion looked. I know it was old, but just kind of comparing it to nowadays, it's just been such a big jump from have to using like stop motion clay models to literally pulling something up on your computer and making a huge detailed dragon.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Zeke?
My favorite part was when Slimer went through Spangler, or no, not Spangler, Vickman, and it was really funny. And Vickman's like, he slimed me. I was trying to hold in this big gust of laughter. It would have sounded like this.
That was a good one. Yeah, that was a good moment. And just so everybody knows, Venkman was played by Bill Murray. And for me, one of the funniest parts about this, seeing these movies again, was seeing like how much Bill Murray just kind of ad-libbed. Like you can tell that a lot of the jokes are in the movie that are just him just kind of being Bill Murray. So I know you guys may not know that, but I was trying to kind of call some of that out because I thought it was so funny. What about you, Connor? What's your first movie? Kind of before we get to we'll get to the end and kind of talk about the end, but kind of leading up, like what's some of your favorite moments in the first movie?
I liked whenever he pulled up with a car in the first part, and now he was talking about what's wrong with it, and now I actually know what that stuff is from my game.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. What about you, Colton? First movie, what'd you like about it?
I like the CGI too. The clay model things.
Yeah, like seeing how they did it. It's kind of crazy because even in the second one, you can see how they created the things with stop motion, and then they of course blurred the two film images so that it looked like it was kind of a ghost. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. So we end up kind of in the first movie. What ends up happening is there's a keymaster and there's a key maker, or what is it? Gatekeeper. Thank you. Keymaster and gatekeeper, and they get inhabited by these evil demon dogs. And then once they kind of get together, they turn back into the demon dogs. And who is it that comes out of the space portal?
Was it Zool?
Zool was not. You're close. Zool was one of the dogs. Yeah. So Zool, that's a good guess. What's the other one? Starts with a G.
James Charles.
I don't even get the joke. Who's James Charles?
The YouTuber that looks like the girl that comes out of the portal.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I'll have to look that up. I did want to mention one other character. So the Sigourney Weaver's character, who Venkman is trying to date, is one of the people. That's Zool, right? One of the space dogs or the demon dogs. The other one was played by Rick Moranis, who is hilarious. What do we know him from?
I don't know.
You remember?
Is it like the really funny guy? Is it like the really funny guy who like jokes around a lot?
He was a dad in a movie, and he built inventions, and those inventions ended up causing his children.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Yeah. He was the dad in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But yeah, so that was kind of fun to see him in this, and he's totally goofy, totally crazy in this one. It's so funny to see him do that. So getting back to the god that comes out of the demon portal, it was Gozer.
Oh, okay.
So they did all this research and kind of figured out like what's going on and who's happening, and then we get to the end of the movie, and the space dogs or the demon dogs have basically opened up this portal. Gozer comes out and she says that I will become anything that you want to fight. I will become that, and then you have to take us down. So what happens?
She becomes the Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
There was also this one part. Oh wait, did I just forget? No. There was this like lawyer or someone, like a health inspector, to see the ghost thing, and he was like, "Oh, what does this lever do?" And then Vickman's like, "You do not want to do that." And then he does it, and then a huge portal. All the ghosts just come down, and like it's basically bringing Heck to Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so they've been captured after Slimer. They kept Slimer, and then they spend the rest of the movie kind of catching all these other ghosts, and they're filling them into their home base where they've got the ghost trap, right? And then at the end, you're right. The city inspector comes and he's like telling me he has to open it. They do, or they have to shut it down, and they do, and all the ghosts come and scare the whole city. And then they call on the Ghostbusters to save the day, even though they're in jail, I think. So it's pretty funny.
In like a mental facility or something.
That was the other movie.
Oh wait.
Oh, that was the second movie. Yeah. So then they had to fight Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Colton, what did you think about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man fight? Was it?
It was funny because the State Buff Marshmallow Man, like that god, was supposed to be really strong, but it was taken down so easily.
Yeah, the Ray was like trying to think of the thing that was the least amount of damage that the person could do, and then it ends up being this huge, like multi-story, giant marshmallow.
I think Super Marshmallow Man looks like the tire company.
Yeah, Michelin tires. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So one time I had a dream, or at least I remembered in the first movie, that Stay Puft Marshmallow Man had laser eyes.
Oh yeah, no, that wasn't in the film. I don't think they could do that back then, but that would have been funny. So then the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man comes down, and what's one of the things that they said not to do? The Spangler said not to do when you're firing the laser proton blasters.
You can't like shoot them at each other or like put them in the same stream of like laser.
Yeah, and what did he say might happen?
The world might explode.
Yeah, so it's not like a small thing. It's like, yeah, if we do this, the whole world might explode. So
think of every neutron in your body just being lit on fire, and every single organism or living organism and abiotic organisms just being lit on fire and destroyed, exploded, obliterated.
That's a pretty good quote there, buddy. Good job. Nice. All right. So then we get to the end of the film, and they're firing at the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and what's happening?
It's not doing anything.
Not damaging him enough, right? So then what is Spangler says? Egon's the scientist one.
Cross them.
Cross the streams. Yes, that's the famous quote that you'll hear in other things, other movies and stuff like that. Don't cross the streams, or this one's cross the streams. So they do that, and it's their forces, their power combined ends up being able to take out the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool. So overall thoughts?
So in Ghostbusters Afterlife, they also crossed the streams to destroy Gozer.
Correct. Yes, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Cool. So overall thoughts. Let's rate the first movie. Colton, why don't you go first? Ghostbusters 1, the original, 1983, I think.
Out of 5?
Yeah.
4.
4 out of 5. Okay, Connor.
I rated a 4.5.
4.5. Jacob.
4.2.
And Zeke.
6 out of 5.
All right. So I will rate it a 4 out of 5 as well. I think it's one of those movies that's definitely, watching it now, you still see all the 80s stuff going on. but I think it holds up. I mean, I think it's still funny, and it's still got some scary moments, and it's still got a pretty decent story. Cool. All right, let's move on to Ghostbusters. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Wait, didn't they delete the Twin Towers off of the film whenever like it
No, that was
Spider-Man.
when we talked about Spider-Man. The original Spider-Man movie had the Twin Towers in it. Yeah, and then they removed them after. Yeah, but we talked about that when we were watching Ghostbusters because we saw the Twin Towers in there. So pretty crazy to see. Now you had you seen this one before we watched it this time, Connor?
I don't think so.
How about you, Colton? Do you remember it? Is this one a new one for you?
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think we'd watch it together, but I didn't know if y'all watched it.
I was when we were watching the movie, this kid, there was like the baby, and I said he should get an Oscar, and I thought before they told us his name, I thought his name was Oscar, and I was right.
Yeah, that was really hilarious. So the second movie kicks off, and we got Sigourney Weaver's character walking down the street with a baby in a carriage. And what we find out, like Colton just said, that his name was Oscar, and she runs over a ooze that's coming out of the sidewalk, and then the what happens to the baby carriage?
It goes all over the place. It's like it went away from her while she was talking to another person, and then it goes into the street, and it's like crossing in between cars, and it almost gets run over. It was funny.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And she's chasing after it, and everybody's trying to stop it, but it's got a mind of its own. So then she ends up having to call up the Ghostbusters. But what do we find out about the Ghostbusters? This is like 5 years after the original movie.
They are literally just like forgotten. They're like for birthday parties just for that. They were famous like 5 years ago. They are not so famous now. Like fame and fortune might be taken away from you.
Yes, exactly. They are relegated to doing birthday parties, and even then, the kids don't want them there. Who did they want at the birthday party? Anybody remember? Who were they calling for at the birthday party?
Was it? I'm gonna make a wild guess. They were calling for Superman.
The Ghostbusters. Who are you gonna call? And they said, He-Man. Y'all don't get He-Man, do you?
Hmm?
He-Man. He-Man was a cartoon from the 80s. That's pretty fun for me as a kid growing up.
They could have also called for the Cowardly Dog, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
And they could have also called for Michael Jordan. You know, if they wanted Michael Jordan to show up for a birthday party, that'd be pretty amazing. So basically, the Ghostbusters did so good at their job. There's no ghosts around, and now they end up having to just do birthday parties to try to make ends meet. But all this happens because she finds some ooze that was on the thing, and so they end up researching it. They end up collecting it. Where do they find the ooze once they figure it out?
In an abandoned subway or train station.
Yeah, and it's like basically a flowing river, right? Meanwhile, we've got she's for some reason, and I am going to point this out. For some reason, this cello player is working as an art restorer in a museum. I don't know why. It says that it's because my kids, and it was kind of funny. Even Kristen called it out that it's kind of funny. The plot just kind of tries to tell you what happens, like when she's asking about Venkman, and she's like, well, after we broke up and this and that, and then it's like she's just trying to tell us and trying to catch us up on where everything is, instead of it, because it doesn't logically make sense. Oh, I'm going to stop restoring art now because my kid's a baby now that I can, like, why couldn't you play the cello and had a baby too? I don't understand.
There was also something we forgot to mention in Ghostbusters 1. The Ghostbusters, they are not the Ghostbusters yet, but they soon will be. They were trying to buy an abandoned firefighter station, and they were like, we don't think this price is reasonable. I think we should lower it, or else we're just not gonna buy it. And then Ray comes down the fire pole and is like, dude, you guys gotta try this fire pole. When are we gonna buy it? And then the lady's like, she's smiling like an evil grin, like one of those evil people. It's really funny.
It was definitely a funny moment because they were trying to get her to lower the price, and then Ray blew it by being so excited about it. This is a good lesson in life, guys. When you go to buy a car or a house, or you go to buy something, If you show excitement and you buy it, what they say, buy it with your eyes, and you show all your excitement, they're not going to lower the price. But if you are calm and you're collected and you kind of just reasonably just kind of, I don't know, maybe secretly inside you really want it, but I don't know, then they might end up trying to lower the price for you. So cars, sometimes houses, there are certain things that you can kind of do that with, but more like with used cars than I think new cars, but they'll still make some deals. But anyway, let's digress back to Ghostbusters 2. So she's working in the art museum, restoring these art pieces, and then we see this huge art piece. What is the big art piece that ends up being the main focus of the movie?
It's like a evil guy from a long time ago.
Yeah, and what is he what do they find out over the course of the movie about this guy?
He was like a really evil dictator, and he would like torture people.
He's also a magician, and he lived for like over 100 and something years, and he didn't die from natural causes, and they don't know, like he basically like kind of gave up his ghost.
He was disemboweled, stabbed, shot, poisoned.
Yeah, so they tried to kill him, but they couldn't. Basically, is what they're trying to say. So he's depicted in this painting, and then one of the guys that works there at the museum is enthralled by it. Right? He ends up talking to it. Come to find out what's happening with this painting. It's not just a painting, right? What is it?
It's alive.
Yeah, the magician guy is living in the painting, and he's recruiting this guy to help him. What?
Find the chosen child that will become.
He's gonna like go into and like live off of that child. Like that.
It's gonna be a vessel.
Yeah, absolutely. Lo and behold, this guy knows of a child, right? Because the Sigourney Weaver's character is there, and he knows that she's got a baby, so he's trying to get this baby from her. So messed up, but that's the movie. Meanwhile, they're trying to find all this ooze. What do they find out about the ooze?
It's basically feeding off of the hate and the bad like feelings in New York, and since there's so much of it, that's why the ooze is like big. And yeah,
and it's kind of like this. It's feeding off of the anger, but then it's also becoming the anger, right? Because what happens when the Ghostbusters fall in it, when they get out of the ooze?
They start hating each other, and they're like punching each other.
Yeah, and then Spengler, I think, is the one that figures it out. Like, hey guys, it's the ooze. So it's kind of this interesting dynamic where the ooze is feeding off of the anger of the New York people, but it's also feeding into it and making everybody angry. So it's funny, like in the opening scene, it's actually foreshadowing, which we talked about, right? Foreshadowing, because as the carriage gets the ooze on the wheel, as she's walking down the street with the carriage, everybody she walks by ends up arguing and ends up fighting along the way. So you might not have picked up on that your first time viewing, but that's pretty cool. So it's kind of foreshadowing that this ooze is the bad stuff.
So if you watch the movie, they found out that they were on trial for destruction of property, the Tatui brothers, or
Yeah, so they had some of the ooze there at the courtroom, and then the judge is yelling and screaming.
And it turns out that the judge knows the ghosts, and the judge was like, "The brothers, I charged them by death at the electric chair." And because of the yelling, they were reminded of that horrible, horrible electric chair.
Yeah, so he's yelling, he's causing this, the ooze blows up, and now everybody sees the ghost again. So 5 years ago when the first movie came out, everybody believed them, everybody trusted them, the Ghostbusters are awesome. And then all it took was 5 years, and all of a sudden nobody believes them. Ghosts don't exist. What are you doing? You guys are a bunch of frauds. They're on trial, and then they have to prove it again by having this ooze in the courtroom. They see it kind of blow up, and then that kind of kicks off the kind of the ending to the movie.
They actually, I don't think they could do this. I don't know how big cameras were back then, but they could like put them on their shoulder. They could put it on their shoulder and then record everything, so they can prove to people like ghosts are real.
Yeah, that's what they do for like ghost hunters, like the actual like reality show that happens right now is that they go into these places where people say are ghosts and they wear those types of things like night vision cameras
Really?
and stuff.
I just made
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah, they so that they can catch something on camera if they didn't see it with their eyes or they didn't hear it, they can hopefully catch it. But yeah, it's interesting.
There's this really funny line from the court scene. This guy says, "Hey, I believe these guys are innocent because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me."
Yes, yes. So Rick Moranis comes back as their lawyer. He was an accountant in the first movie. For whatever reason, he's now a lawyer, and now he's going to represent them. But he's like, I'm a finance lawyer, not like a criminal lawyer. And they're like, it's fine. So very bad decision, guys. If you need a lawyer in your life, you want to find one that specializes in the thing that you're going to court for, not just some random lawyer. So anyway, so yeah, that kind of builds us up to the end of the movie, and the baby gets taken by a ghost, which is it's kind of like the dude, the museum dude, takes him with a ghost spirit, and then they go to try to take him down. He's like in the middle of like there's just like candles and stuff, and then like his face is about to be on the baby. Looked really weird.
The guy unlocks the cage and then she tricks him into believing that she is okay with this, but then she takes the baby.
They get like everybody in the city to come and like sing a song. I forgot what song it was, but
oh, that's right. Well, the ooze is kind of taking over the building and blocking the building, and then they need to bring something that's going to defeat this guy.
The Statue of Liberty.
Yes. One thing we forgot to mention earlier was while the ooze does feed off everybody's anger, what's the other thing that it does? Remember the toaster scene?
Whenever they play music, it moves and like bounces.
Yeah, it dances.
Yeah.
So then they're like, we need to get this music going. We blow all this ooze over the Statue of Liberty. Maybe we can make the Statue of Liberty move. And what did they use to move the Statue of Liberty?
What?
The Nintendo joystick.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you would remember that. Yeah. So they have like the ooze, and so the music gives they're blasting all this loud music, and then they're like got a Nintendo joystick to try and control the. I don't know the logic of that, but it's pretty cool, pretty funny for the movie.
I think the ooze in the toaster was the good ooze instead of the bad ooze, because the bad ooze is like, "Ah!"
Well, that's what's interesting about the ooze is that it's feeding off of the energy that it's getting, and then it's contributing to it. So the more anger that's around, it's feeding off of that and exhibiting more anger. The more happiness that's around, it's feeding off of that. It's becoming happy and then giving more happiness. So they end up getting, you're right, Jacob, they ended up having the whole city join and start singing the songs and all that stuff. And then Statue of Liberty comes in and crushes through the building so that they can get inside and save the day, right? Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on Ghostbusters 2?
The ooze will make you wake up and feel like $1,000,000.
Oh, okay. How's that?
It feeds off the energy it's given because everyone was so happy. One person was being shot with the ooze, and he's like so happy. He's like a Ghostbuster was shot with ooze, and then he wakes up and is like, "Guys, I love you guys."
Oh, you're right. You're right. Because the happy, yeah, they turn the ooze happy, and then and then they're covered in ooze. I do remember that now. That's funny. Well, cool. Let's go ahead and rate Ghostbusters 2. Connor, why don't you go first?
3.9.
Okay. Colton?
3.5.
same with Colton, 3.5.
5.
All right, and I give it a 3 as well. Like it's definitely a low point for the series, but kind of I see what they were going for. And as a kid, I really liked it because it was the one that I saw the most. And it's actually I mentioned this on a podcast that I did with your mom, but Ghostbusters was the first time I ever saw a movie at home. My mom and I Grammy and I rented Ghostbusters, and then she's like, Ghostbusters 2 is in the theater. And so we went and saw it that afternoon. So that was the first time I remember watching a movie at home and then watching the second one in the theater. And now I try to do that all the time. So pretty fun. Cool. Well, let's jump to Ghostbusters Afterlife. As I mentioned before, Ivan Reitman was the director of the first 2 Ghostbusters films from the 80s. His son, Jason Reitman, began developing Ghostbusters movie, and he directed Ghostbusters Afterlife. So he's kind of taking that kind of energy of the first two films, the heart behind it, and he's kind of impressing that into the film. One other interesting note is that the guy that played Egon is actually passed away since the first two movies, and he was not available for this movie because he had passed away. But he plays a critical role in the film, and I had forgotten a lot of it before seeing it this time. So, what happens at the very beginning of the movie?
He's trying to stop this like demon god to like trying to stop it, and then he captures it, but he dies.
Yeah, he ends up flipping the switch for this trap. We see all the ghost traps. We see all the things that we know from the original movie, but it seems like it's a little bit more epic. He's on his farm and he stomps the thing and it powers up and then it crashes the electricity, right? So then he ends up dying in the process. Come to find out, he had an estranged daughter that's mad at him, but her and her family, her son and daughter, are going to be traveling to his farm because that's what she inherited. Throughout the process, what ends up happening in the movie for the kids?
They have to live there because she couldn't keep up with the rent.
Yeah. And what do they do while they're there? What do they get involved with?
The ghosts and find a trap under like the floor.
Yeah. The one daughter, which is Egon's granddaughter, is just like him. Very smart, very head-centric, very understanding of science and all that stuff. And it looks like she knows all the things. So she ends up discovering a lot of the stuff. They find the ghost trap. Who else is in this movie that we recognize?
There's the receptionist or the clerk from the first movie or the first two movies.
Yeah, she shows up. That's what you call kind of like a cameo. She kind of shows up and is the kind of the person that's been keeping up with Egon's finances and helping Egon, but then ends up selling the house or giving the house to daughter. They're in this town, this farm, all this stuff, and then they start seeing some ghosts, and they end up finding the proton packs. They find the ghost. They find what is one of the things that they find in the barn. The son finds, what does he find?
He finds the Ghostbusters car.
And what does he find also in the car? There's a lot of cool new gadgets, right?
I think he finds a proton pack.
Yeah, there's multiple proton packs. What else is in the car?
The minigun.
The minigun. Yeah. What else? There's like a ghost trap, but it's on wheels, right?
I like a RC car.
Yeah, RC trap. That's pretty cool. And then the last thing I'll ask is there's a button that she kicks, and then what does it do?
Opens like the door and then she flies out.
Yeah, it's like a gunner door.
Well, she doesn't fly out.
Right,
She just
her
goes
seat-
into a gunner.
Yeah, her seat pops out the side, and so she can. I mean, that was just so cool. Like when that happened the first time.
I also like the Class 5 Metal Muncher. I think that since they study ghostology, it's really cool. I have a book of ghostology in my room, and I'm planning to read it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So she ends up developing a friend in class. She has no friends because she's brand new. She has to go to summer school because I don't know why. She seems smart, but she's sending her to Sunday school or summer school. And who does she meet at summer school?
Podcast.
And what is podcast?
Boy.
A boy. Why is he called podcast?
Because he's always podcasting.
Yes, he's recording every moment and he's narrating every moment, and it's kind of funny. So they end up finding that these Gozers coming back. The mom gets inhabited by Zool. Her boyfriend, who's actually the teacher for summer school, who's played by Paul Rudd, who's also
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man, yes. So he ends up trying to help them out, but then they end up going on a date, and then they end up being inhabited by the demon dogs again. So what they're doing, and this is common in these movies. So, and if you think about Star Wars: Force Awakens, did very similar things. So when there's distance from an original film, when they come back and they're trying to represent it to a new audience, they really kind of borrow a lot from that original, because what that does is it kind of gets the nostalgia feels going. So people start remembering, oh yeah. So while they did amp up a lot of things, like the car has the gunner thing, it's got the RC, trap. Those are kind of advances on the original film, but the themes are still kind of grabbing from that original film and, hey, let's do that again, get audiences excited, and then we can kind of take the story forward. So they did it with Force Awakens. They did it with this one, because now we're going to see Frozen Empire, and it looks completely different from any other of the Ghostbusters films. But they had to they wanted to make sure that they got audiences excited about it first. So with that said, we have Zool, we have Gozer. She's coming back, and they end up fighting, needing to fight her. But how do they end up doing it? What do they end up doing to take her down?
They find out that Egon Spangler, he was not a dirt farmer. He was setting up a trap to protect everyone, like hundreds and hundreds of traps to trap all the ghosts inside and for them to never be released again. But in Frozen Empire, they forgot one.
Well, yeah, we'll see kind of where they take that. But yeah, these ghosts.
They bring all the old Ghostbusters back, and they get eventually at the very end, Egon something comes back to life, and he's not talking because he can't, and it's like a ghost of him.
Yes. I got super emotional at that point. That was really cool for me, because they ended up trying to kick the trap like we saw in the very beginning of the movie, and the electricity goes, and then it falls apart again. And so now they're stuck just like he was in the beginning. But then really quickly before that, they had just talked about how much power is in the proton pack. So the granddaughter decided, let me shoot the electricity for transformers with the proton pack and see if that does it. And then it was so strong and so powerful, Egon appears beside her and is holding the thing with him. And then the old Ghostbusters come back. What do?
They cross the streams.
Yeah, they cross the streams, take down Gozer again. And then we also get a cool moment where they get to say goodbye to their friend. There's
also a bunch of mini marshmallows they've puffed, man.
Oh yeah, that was a super funny scene. He's in Walmart shopping, and there's sees a little marshmallow guy on the marshmallow rack, and then they end up biting him, and then they're all attacking him and chasing after him. That was so funny. Anything else about Ghostbusters Afterlife? I think it was a really good kind of a retelling of the original, and kind of I felt it moved the story forward into current day.
There was a mass genocide of marshmallows that day.
Yes, there was, absolutely. So the one, what's the one actor that plays the son?
Finn Wolfhard.
And what do we know him from?
Stranger Things and It.
Yeah, he was in this. I think he did a really good job. He gets a girlfriend, kind of a girl interest at the hamburger place, and they kind of did some, shenanigans with all the other teens, and then that kind of awakened some of the ghosts and stuff too. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and shut it down. Let's go do our rating of Ghostbusters Afterlife. Colton, why don't you go first?
4.5.
Okay, Connor.
5.
5.
5.
Okay, and Jacob.
4.7.
Okay, I think I gave it a 4.5. I think it's really, really good. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, it kind of brings back some of those feelings from the original, a lot of the things, and then kind of expands on it, expands the story, and kind of brings it all forward. So now these can be our new Ghostbusters. And then in the new movie from the trailer, it looks like they bring in some other people to help them out and become Ghostbusters too. They're back in New York, it looks like. So it's kind of a return to New York, which is what happens at the very end of the movie, is they end up driving to New York, and then it kind of goes to black. So it's kind of saying, hey, we did this thing, and now we're going back to New York and kind of going to go back to where Ghostbusters started. But did you guys, I don't think any of you were in the room for the post-credit scene. So in the post-credit scene, Venkman is sitting there with the cards. No, he's being asked what's behind the cards, and it's Sigourney Weaver. So his girlfriend from the first movie ends up asking him the things, and then electrocuting him because he keeps getting them all right, but she finds out he was cheating. So it's pretty cute. But it's a nice little thing to kind of bring all those original characters back and give them some time on the screen. Cool. Well, thank you so much for listening, and hope you go out and see the movie. It looks super fun. We're definitely going to see it next weekend, and hope you enjoy it. And we'll be back with another episode next week. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, Mr. Krabs. Ah!
Thanks again for listening to the podcast today. We hope you enjoyed all the conversation, had a lot of fun with me and the boys as we discussed the Ghostbusters films. I just wanted to let you know that upcoming, we've got a couple of fun episodes coming up. This coming week will be Godzilla and Kong series, so we'll talk through all of those movies that are the most recent releases, gearing up for Godzilla X Kong, A New Empire, that drops next week. Following that, it is Monday, April 1st, so we're going to do Dumb and Dumber as a Fool's movie. So the boys have not seen that, so we're going to introduce them to that and kind of have some laughs and see what they think about it. And then the week following that, we're going to do at least Tenet. I'm also toying with the idea of maybe throwing in another Christopher Nolan movie in there for me and Jacob to discuss, since we saw Tenet. One of the themes I think that Christopher Nolan likes to utilize is time in his movies. So we might do Interstellar, since there's a scene in that movie where time changes depending on which planet that you're on, and how the distance you are away from that planet and that planet's towards the black hole. So anyway, lots of information there, but I thought it might be fun to kind of pair those together. So we'll see if we have time to do that. It will at least be Tenet, so that'll be that following week, April 8th. And then we've got a couple of weeks coming up after that we're going to maybe touch on some of the movies that we talked about going to see and prepare for, and kind of give you kind of our review of them. We think Ghostbusters and Godzilla X Kong would be the two that we'll do in the following 2 weeks, as kind of like mini reviews from us. They might be shorter episodes because it's just one movie, but that's what we're planning on for now. But that might change. Those last 2 weeks might change because we'll also be in the mood gearing up for Apes, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. That's going to be coming out later this year. So that's a little bit of what's upcoming. Again, follow us on Instagram to see all the up-to-date news. Every time we drop something, every time we watch something, we try and post it there so you can know what we're up to over here at the Movies That Make You. So until next time, keep watching movies.